All right, episode 453 with Mr. Howard Martin is brought to you by Extrema Ceram Core Cookware. This is the premier cookware that you guys and us should all be using. It's 100% natural, no heavy metals, no chemicals, no toxins, no poisons, nothing leaching into your food. It's amazing stuff, and it's the cookware that Kate and I are transitioning all of our cookware into. Slowly but surely, we're just buying up more and more Ceram Core. They have everything over there. If you are interested in non-toxic, chemical-free cookware, check them out. Definitely check them out. They are, in my opinion, the way to go. We're so happy with their products. We use them all the time, every single day, every time we cook vegetables in our coconut oil. Extrema is awesome. So go over there and learn more about what they have to offer, and I think you'll be super, super impressed. And we're also brought to you by Barf World Dog Food. Now, it sounds gross, but Barf World is a biologically appropriate raw food diet for dogs, and we now have a brand new pup, Miss Charlie Brown, and we transitioned her to the Barf World, and she just loves it. She's going through a little bit of a detox right now because the Barf World is such a natural diet, high in enzymes. It's raw, it's uncooked, unprocessed, and it includes, this is what's really cool, the entrails as well as the bones, because when someone or anybody eats only muscle meat, it's really unnatural because a dog would normally eat the entire animal, and the entire animal would most likely contain plants that have been digested by the animal they kill. So those are alkaline minerals, and then the muscle meat's very acidic, and then the bone is also alkaline. So you have this perfect acid-alkaline balance, which is super important for dogs. And Maggie and Charlie absolutely love the Barf World. They'll never go back to regular conventional kibble or dry dog food or Alpo or any of those kinds of things. So check out Barf World and Extrema Ceram Core Cookware at extremehealthradio.com/453. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on another edition here of Extreme Health Radio. Really appreciate you guys joining us, and thank you, all of you who have been patient with us during our time where our computer crashed. So we haven't been able to do shows for a couple weeks, but we have a new computer, custom built by our friends over at Dell Computers. So hopefully, we can start getting back to more shows. So we're really excited about that. Today is episode 453 with Mr. Howard Martin, and I was originally introduced to Mr. Howard Martin and his work over at HeartMath by two friends of ours, dear friends, Dr. Richard Massey and Meridian Grace over at Awakening Health. And Howard Martin is one of those original leaders who actually helped Dr. Childre found HeartMath in 1991, and he played a key role in launching the Global Coherence Initiative. He's a business leader. He's been the spokesperson for HeartMath around the world, giving hundreds of lectures every year, speaking and delivering training programs to Fortune 100 companies, government agencies, and U.S. military, schools, and ecumenical organizations. He's the executive vice president of HeartMath LLC and the author of a really cool and interesting book called Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart. And we're going to be talking all about the connection between the heart and the brain and living a heart-centered life. And he's got some really cool tools to be able to help us do that. So we're honored to have Mr. Howard Martin on the show today. Thank you so much, Howard, for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Well, Justin, thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be episode 453.
Quite a few.
And I want to say hello to everyone who's listening to our conversation today, wherever you are in the world and whenever you're listening to this, and let you know that I appreciate your time and your attention.
Excellent. You know, it's interesting. I found out about your work through a friend of ours, Dr. Richard Massey, out in Austin, Texas, and they have your meters, and we used those when I was over there visiting with them last time, the EMWave and all of that, and he really provided a lot of information. He loves those things.
Well, that's great. Yeah, there are, I think, something like 30,000 health professionals now in our database that use HeartMath in some form, whether it's our technology or our techniques. Many of them have gone through one of our training programs that trains health professionals in how to use HeartMath material and technology to improve patient outcomes. So for us at HeartMath, we do a lot of things in a lot of different areas of society. Mm-hmm. But certainly, healthcare is a very important part of our work.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was reading that there's some recent discoveries are showing that the heart actually has its own intrinsic nervous system. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. It's not even recent, really. It's amazing how this research was sort of hidden in the literature. Uh-huh. But years ago, when we started HeartMath back in 1991, we wanted to develop a system using the intelligence of the heart to help empower people through the changing times that were happening and that we felt were going to be more intense, which in fact they are. And we needed to build a bridge between what people sort of sense and know about a heart and what they felt, but we needed to make it empirical. So we began to use science as the bridge for that. Now, we found research scattered throughout the research literature indicating that the heart was doing a lot more than pumping blood. Our scientists took that further and created the story, which has really changed for millions of people their view of the physical heart. One of the research areas that we did find was the study of what's called neurocardiology, and that actually studies the nervous system that you mentioned that exists in the heart. Mm-hmm. Next to the brain, the heart has the most complex part of the nervous system in the body. And so this intrinsic nervous system exists in the heart, and they call it the brain in the heart. And it sends information to the brain in the head through a nerve pathway that starts out in the heart, travels up through the lower centers of the brain, then right into the limbic system, the midbrain, where we have a lot of our emotional processing. But then where it gets interesting, Justin, is that nerve pathway terminates up in the higher perceptual centers of the brain.
Say that again. The nerve pathway, it terminates in the higher perception areas of the brain?
Yeah. So the heart's sending information all the way into the higher perceptual centers of the brain. So all the time there's this neurological conversation taking place between heart and brain. Mm-hmm. Brain sends information down to the heart, controlling the timing of the heartbeat. But what it turns out to be, though, is that the heart sends a lot more information to the brain than it ever gets from the brain.
Really? So it's more one-sided than the other. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
I wonder why that is. So why do you think that is?
Well, the heart's, basically an information processing center in the body. That's what's new about understanding our physical heart. We all know it pumps blood. It's the most amazing pump that there is on planet Earth. But what people didn't know is that it's doing a lot more. So the heart is sending powerful, important commands to the brain and throughout the rest of the body. That's one of its primary jobs. Mm-hmm. We also have indications that it receives information, that it learns, that it remembers. Some of the cells, for example, that exist in the heart that make up that nervous system are called local circuit neurons. Mm-hmm. And they're the same type of neuron you find in the brain that is responsible for memory. Mm-hmm. So the heart's doing a lot more. And the information that goes to the brain is essential for brain function. And that information going through the nervous system and other communication pathways has a lot to do with how we think, how we feel, and how we perceive.
Now, we've had people on our show talking before about the heart, and it's almost they were describing it as a way of it actually perceives events that are going to happen a couple seconds ahead of the cognitive brain. Is that true?
That's actually our research.
Yeah.
Our scientists did that study. It's published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. You can get it on the heartmath.org website just by clicking on the research tab, and you can see all the research papers that are there by HeartMath scientists as well as third-party researchers.
So what did they find out?
It was interesting. Yeah. Would you like me to describe it?
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it's amazing. What they did is they had test subjects sitting in front of a computer, and they had images loaded in the computer. Some were horrific images and some were very beautiful. The computer was set to randomly select images. So the test subject was wired from head to toe. Brainwave function was being monitored in great detail, skin response, and several measurements of heart were being taken all at the same time from the test subject. So the test subject would sit in front of a blank screen. There would be a prompt that comes up that says push the button. They push a button, and then there was a 6-second delay with nothing on the screen. And then a picture would emerge. It would stay on the screen for 3 seconds. The screen would go blank. 10 seconds later, the prompt comes up. They push the button again. The picture shows up. So lots and lots of samples were being taken from these test subjects over and over again with random selection going on from the computer. When they analyzed the data, they were amazed. What they saw is that the physiological response to a picture was happening in most cases about 6 seconds before the picture actually emerged.
So it's happening on average 6 seconds?
Yeah.
On average 6 seconds. So, gosh, that's a long time. I would have thought it would have been like half a second or a second, but that's actually a long time.
Here's where the information processing flowed. The first responder to the upcoming picture that wasn't there was actually the heart. Then a second and a half later, the brain began to respond to that picture that wasn't there. And then a second and a half before the picture shows up on the screen, the two merged. They did a frequency couple, and then the picture showed up.
So how are those measured, the heart and the brain, during an experiment like that?
Well, it gets pretty complex, and to be honest with you, it's more complex than I could probably speak coherently about. But with the heart measurements, they're using something called heart-evoked potentials. They're measuring the acceleration and deceleration of the heart, and those accelerations and decelerations would be accompanied by what the heart would normally do in various situations. That's one way. They were also looking at heart rate variability, which is the timing taking place between heartbeats. These very complex patterns emerge when you measure heart rate variability. So there were lots of different ways in which they were looking at things and correlating a lot of data. This was a very big and expensive study, so big, in fact, that it had to be published in 2 parts. Now, you brought up an interesting comment a minute ago, like, wow, 6 seconds. I didn't know it could be that long. I thought maybe it was a second and a half.
Yeah.
Here's where I had an aha one day. I was on a flight with Dr. Roland McCready, who's the director of research at the HeartMath Institute. And I said something similar to him, and he says, oh, well, he said, you got to think about it this way. He said 6 seconds was just where the research protocol was set.
Oh.
What if it could be even much sooner than that?
My goodness, we need to do another test. How do we do that?
Well, I have to set the protocol longer, I guess. But in the summary of the research papers, they make a statement that it appears as if our physiology is constantly scanning for future events, and that the heart appears to have access to a field of information that goes beyond the limitations of time and space.
Do you think that's at all connected to the work of Rupert Sheldrake and his morphogenic field and all of that?
Yeah, it all relates. I mean, one of the things that many scientists know now is that we're all connected at energetic levels, that every living system is connected through a vast web of energetic connections. And this is becoming more and more understood now and more prevalent. And that's the type of research that our scientists are doing today, is looking at energetics and how energetics relate to one another, how you relate to me, how I relate to you, how all of us who are listening to this show now, regardless of the time that we're listening to it, are connecting in some very unique way through unseen fields. And this is an exciting area of research. I think it's important because it's intriguing, can be entertaining, but here's why I really think it's important, Justin. It's kind of showing in a way that we're all in this together, that everything we do has an influence on everything else. And that we are really in this sea of frequencies that we're relating in so many different ways, and most of which we're not sensitive to yet. The intuition study, to me, just implied that we have these capacities that we're not aware of yet. As we develop in consciousness and intelligence, we're going to become more aware of them. And that's where things like intuition fit in, where intuition becomes practical rather than mystical. This is all part of, I think, the evolution of us as human beings, and science is just providing an interesting bridge between what we feel inside and what we can know empirically.
One of the cool things about doing a show like this is we get to talk to so many awesome people like you and other people, and there's we're doing a show with a lady named Hannah Crum, and she does a lot of work with kombucha and cultures and bacteria and spores and all of that kind of stuff. And she was talking about this same kind of thing that you're talking about, and we're talking about intuition. And she was saying, you know how sometimes you just get this feeling where you feel like you really connect with the person, or people find love at first sight kind of thing, or you get a weird feeling with someone just by meeting them really quickly. And she was saying how the bacteria in her research has shown that the bacteria in your gut and the bacteria in my gut are actually communicating with one another. And it kind of goes back to what you were just saying, where our physiology is scanning, God knows what, maybe the morphogenic field, or our physiology is scanning something in order to predict future events. I mean, I think there's so much that we just don't know. It's just
there's
amazing.
A lot. Yeah, that's very interesting that she said that about the bacteria, and because I think this connection that we're speaking to right now, Justin, happens at macro and micro levels.
Yeah. How so in macro and micro?
Well, I do think we're all connected to a field of information, a large field of information beyond our conceptual framework of even beginning to grasp what it is. And it's called consciousness. And if you look up consciousness, try to get a definition of it, you don't. They don't know what it is yet, but yet everybody believes in it. You know, we believe we believe we have a mind. What is a mind? A mind is like, an access point to something larger. So there's this field of consciousness. There's a myriad of complexity involved in taking a look at that. But we're all connected to it in some ways, and we're drawing information from it. That information comes into the sensory apparatus that we have. We turn that into our view of what reality is or isn't. And so there's this constant dance going on between us and a field of information that's beyond the normal time and space understandings. Now, my belief is this, is that we relate to that field not through just what we think, but especially what we feel in our hearts.
Okay.
At the deeper level of our authentic self, who we really are, that's what we're really imprinting that field with, not just the surface level thoughts or the false identities that we have or the stuff that we make up. There's something more true in us than that. And it is within that truth that's in us that we communicate, and we communicate with a field of information that then feeds back to us, not just what we're thinking, but especially what we're truly feeling.
So how does that relate to the work of Louise Hay and a lot of these people that are doing positive affirmations and which I love? I think it's all great, but I wonder if you can get your heart to feel the things that she's talking about in terms of affirmations and I mean, sports athletes do this all the time. People, boxers or fighters or football players will, go over the game in their head before. But what you're saying is that this has to connect with the heart in some way.
I believe it does, and let me just make a comment here that where we've always seen HeartMath is as a facilitator, a friendly facilitator of any other great work that's going on or helping people. So we never see ourselves as competitors. We've got the answer and other people don't. It's not that type of polarization that's a part of who we are. It's not in our DNA as an organization or as people. And so there's great work going on around positive affirmations, positive thinking. It's been around for a really, really long time in the personal growth movements. My belief is this, is you don't really have the power behind those thoughts unless there's an emotional agreement underneath them.
Okay.
So the feelings have to be aligned with the thoughts, and then heart is, got to be involved in that process somewhere. That you're true, again, that true part of yourself. It's got to be in alignment with those thoughts to give them the power to manifest. We can affirm a lot. We can visualize a lot. But the manifestation of that has a lot to do with what's behind all of that. And that's where heart comes into play.
So is it possible then to, like if someone's listening to this and they have, maybe their body was given some sort of diagnosis of some kind of disease and they really want to feel like they're free of that disease, would part of it be that they could actually sort of, I'm not sure what the right term is, but to embody the affirmation to the point where it becomes a feeling?
That's right. Deeper inside themselves. Make it real. Okay. And, we're going through a big brand change here at HeartMath right now. We're really simplifying the brand. And what it's come down to is our brand is called Add Heart.
I like that.
A symbol and a heart will be our new logo.
That's really cool. Is that out yet, or is that still being worked on?
It's coming out soon, yeah. But what add heart means is you can add heart to anything and you don't lose anything at all. It doesn't take away from whatever else you're doing. If you're doing an affirmation, that's fantastic. Keep doing that affirmation. Just add heart to it and you enhance it. If you're a mother and you're working with your children, just add heart to them. if you're a business person and you're dealing with a business meeting, add heart to the meeting. So you can add heart everywhere. And it relates, I think, to, how we want to function as human beings in society, so that it becomes more of just a natural way in which we approach life. So I'm really about right now is about creating an add heart movement, about bringing together all these large numbers of people around the world that are in our network. I mean, HeartMath's gotten pretty big today. We have, something like 500,000 people in our databases now.
Wow.
We have way larger than that in Facebook and Twitter followers. And we do have networks that bring them together. We do have certified trainers and coaches and people that are accredited by us. But how do we bring that together even more, and how do we create a momentum of adding heart? Because I think the world today could use a dose of heart. Certainly the care, the kindness, the compassion, the non-judgment, the appreciation associated with heart would be very beneficial during this time period in history.
It could be. It should be. And I think it needs to be. It's interesting that I want to get into what the heart rate variability is that you talked about a little while ago. But our friend Dr. Richard Massey out in Texas, he uses your EMWave. And what he does is he sits down and he'll write letters like he does Byron Katie's The Work, or he'll do worksheets, and he'll write letters to his organs and things like that. And he's told me last time I was out there that he'll write letters, or he'll write a letter to maybe a relative who's passed away who did him wrong or something like that and had some animosity towards. And he would write letters, and he would start writing, and his EMWave would be red or it would be green, and he would find out what he truly thinks and what he truly believes by being in coherence and figuring out, based upon the EMWave, how deep his writings are going.
Yeah, what you're talking about, Justin, is about a technology we developed, and I'll go back now and answer a couple of the questions you had about things like heart rate variability and coherence. When we were looking at heart-brain-body communications and looking for the best way to decode that information that was happening, we found a medical discipline called heart rate variability. And what it is a measurement of the timing between heartbeats.
Okay.
It's not like a fitness monitor just measuring heart rate. It's measuring the timing between a heartbeat. If you think about how the heart works, it loads up and it pumps, and then it reloads again and then it pumps again. Well, there's a different timing between every one of those pumps. The timing is being influenced by everything from movement to speech to light to sound, but it's also being influenced by emotion. The emotions that we're experiencing are changing the way the heart beats. They're changing the rhythmic beating pattern of the heart.
So is it safe to say that our heart really isn't as rhythmic as we think? Lots of outside influences happen in between the beats, right?
Yeah, it's not supposed to be that rhythmic. That was the funny thing. We go to the doctor takes your pulse and says, hey, Howard, your heart beats 75 beats a minute. And I never even thought about that. I thought it was beating at 75 beats a minute.
Right.
What that is an average.
Right.
It's an average. And it's supposed to fluctuate. You want the heart to have a lot of different nuance in the timing in which it beats to pump blood in the ways that are most appropriate for the function that the body's doing at that point in time. So it is supposed to have a lot of variation in it. Now, emotion, as I mentioned, plays a big role in how it varies. You want it to vary if you're walking or talking, but you want it to have a nice sine wave-like smooth rhythm of slowing up and speeding up and slowing down and speeding up in a very ordered way if you're just hanging out. But if you start experiencing a negative emotion, something like you start getting frustrated about the email you just got, or you start feeling anxious about, something that you think might be going on and you don't know about it. Somebody might be talking about you in the next office, that kind of thing. What happens is those heart rhythms start getting really chaotic. The speeding up and slowing down becomes highly irregular. When that happens and it's being induced by an emotion, it's not good for your health. It's really hard on the physical heart. It's really hard on the autonomic nervous system. It causes the release of hormones into the body that we don't want in excessive amounts, like too much adrenaline or too much cortisol. And lastly, it sends signals from heart back to brain that begin to shut down the higher perceptual centers in our brain. The neocortex becomes less electrically active.
How so? When you start thinking thoughts that are stressful and things?
Yeah. So let's think about it this way. This is some good old Southern boy logic here. When we get mad and upset, do we really have a lot of clarity in what we're thinking?
Yeah, it really shuts down creativity, doesn't it?
Shuts down all kinds of higher brain function. It doesn't allow us to see the big picture. It puts us in this myopic focus, and we become reactive. What's happening inside the brain is that the higher perceptual centers are shutting down. The emotional brain and the instinctive brain are taking over.
The emotional brain and the instinctive brain. So that would be what some people would call the reptilian brain or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So conversely, though, what happens is when you experience a positive emotion, the type of emotions associated with the general concept of heart, the heart rhythms change. You start feeling appreciation for the good things in your life. You start caring about someone or something. You become thankful. You become patient. Those type of emotions create a different heart rhythm. Now that rhythm becomes very sine wave-like if you were seeing it on a graph. Heart is speeding up and then naturally slowing down. What's happening inside the rest of the body is this. It's really good for the physical heart. It's great for the autonomic nervous system. It's creating synchronization in that all-important part of our nervous system. That triggers hormones into our body that regenerate us, like oxytocin and DHEA. And then those same signals cascade up into the brain, and they begin to activate higher perceptual centers in the brain.
All so just from thinking.
We get smarter.
Wow, that's so fascinating. All just from thinking good thoughts and being grateful and having good emotions around those thoughts.
That's correct.
That's so interesting.
So we can learn to measure that, and when you look at heart rate variability and you measure it, you can measure it for a term called coherence.
Okay.
There's actually a medical term for that called psychophysiological coherence. Coherence is a highly ordered state where all the major body systems start synchronizing to an ordered rhythmic beating pattern of the heart. So things like digestion, immune system response, hormonal response, brain function, all that begins to synchronize. So you end up in this really high-performance state, this healthy, high-performance synchronized state. Mm-hmm. And that's good for your health. Now, what triggers coherence is positive emotions. And when you're in that coherent state, those type of emotions become more readily accessible. In other words, once you get it going, it's easier to feel good about other people. It's easier to feel appreciation rather than disappointment.
So the
those
more
type of emotions become more accessible to you.
That makes a lot of sense. So the more you do it, it becomes like a practice like anything else. The better you get at it and the more able you are to access those same feelings, and it becomes like this sort of cascading thing.
That's right.
So
16 years ago, we released a technology product that took heart rate variability and coherence scoring out of some medical disciplines and put it down into something that any of us could use and have to train ourselves to improve those heart rhythms, become more coherent, and create more access to our own heart. And it's called the EMWave, E-M-W-A-V-E, the first version, and one we have today is for computers. It's computer-based. That one today is called EMWave Pro. A lot of health professionals use it. We turned it into a handheld device called EMWave 2, which is about the size of a cell phone. Then about 3 years ago, we released it for iOS devices.
Oh, okay.
And so now it's called Inner Balance Trainer. And you buy a sensor from HeartMath or from Amazon or somewhere like that, and you use it with your iPhone, your iPad, your iTouch, and you have the same technology built right into your mobile device. So we've sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these around the world in over 120 countries, I think it is. So millions of people have been exposed to this technology. The doctor that you mentioned in Texas, for example, uses it all the time.
He uses it on all his patients and everything.
Yeah, so there are lots of doctors and health professionals of all kinds, mental health professionals, psychologists, therapists, chiropractors, nutritionists that use it. And then you have business applications. There are companies that use it. There are hospitals that have their nurses using it. It moved into athletics. Olympic athletes use it. I saw an article just the other day published about a female wrestler from Canada that wrestled in the Olympics that talked all about using her EMWave.
Wow.
Chinese gymnasts use it. And then there are hundreds of thousands of people that are using it just for themselves. There are people involved in wanting to grow. There are self-improvement people. There are people who maybe have a health issue and use it for that, but they can be people that don't have health issues, that just want to feel better, that want to have higher performance. And so all this has happened because we were able to understand heart in a new way. through the eyes of science, and then take and create technology that's good for us, something that everybody can use that's affordable to help improve that all-important communication that does take place between the heart, the brain, and the rest of our body.
You know, I had a question for a long time about the newer versions of the EMWave, and my concern or question is about the EMF and how that affects or is affected by the iPhone and phones and touches and stuff like that. Does that have an effect on the EMWave?
It's a good question, Justin. I mean, I have not looked into EMF research a lot about the use of cell phones and things like that. And I know that people are concerned about it, and there may be some credence or relevance to their concerns. Here's what I do know is if we're talking about energetic fields, and those fields could be affecting us, we also create our own energetic field. This is where the science of heart, brain, body goes into some interesting understanding. You see, the heart creates an electromagnetic field that surrounds us in 360 degrees. The field is strong enough, it's about 2.5 watts of power behind that field. It actually extends beyond our skin out into space about 3 to 4 feet. So we are literally broadcasting an electromagnetic field from the heart. Every single one of us, every human being is broadcasting this field. Now, the more coherent we are, the more that field is our field, it's stable, and the less other fields can affect us. So in a sense, you can look at being coherent as I don't like to see it this way. I don't like to approach things from a fear-based perspective. But one way you could see it is that by creating more coherence in yourself, you're creating your own field that's in a way protecting you from things like EMF or other types of fields. That's interesting. I wonder if that's why it feels so good to hug someone who's because you're pressing your heart against theirs almost. Well, we all are, again, interfacing it in these unseen ways, and this is one way. And what's interesting about this, Justin, is it's electromagnetic fields. This isn't complex, subtle energy science or something. This is very measurable fields, measured with magnetometers, standard medical research devices that measure fields. Now, is this similar or different to the Kirlian photography? That's really different from that. Okay. Kirlian photography is my impression of that is some sort of an adaptation trying to measure a subtle energy field. Okay. I think it only is rudimentary. I think it's a great effort. Whoever created it and whoever uses it, I applaud them for that. But I think it's just the beginning of understanding these fields. Subtle energy is very, very difficult to measure. There are a lot of researchers working on that, but the Kirlian photography and things like that have been around a long time, I think are just the baby step in understanding that we produce fields. So the heart itself, more than any other organ, is producing an electromagnetic field more than any other organ. Is that correct? Very correct. It's by far the strongest source of bioelectricity in our body, about 40 to 60 times more powerful than the second most powerful source, which happens to be the brain. The brain, 40 to 60 times more powerful? Yep. That is so, I wonder why. I mean, it's gosh, that's so just fascinating. I'm just at a loss for words. That's so weird. I mean, we're so entrenched in our society to just be so logical and thinking and being in our head and disconnected from feeling, aren't we? We really are. And, most people, or many people, let's put it that way, have started living life only from the neck up. The roar of ambition and survival has pulled many of us away from something that's naturally part of who we are. HeartMath, the system of HeartMath, our tools, our techniques, our technology, and our science are really just a contribution to help people reconnect with something they already have. I like that a lot. Themselves is essential to living a happy and fulfilling and healthy life. I really like that a lot because, like we were just talking about, our culture is so intellectually driven, and it's so very much concerned with knowledge, how much knowledge someone has, how intelligent they are, how well they speak, and all of this brain-oriented things and making a logical decision. Should I take this job or should I take that job? Should I go this way home instead of that way home? And while we're just disconnected from our intuition, Yes, we are. But that's the bad news, and it is true. But we can return to that more easily than we might think. The road home is shorter than people may realize. And a lot of people are coming into that understanding. People are sort of tired of living a certain way. They're tired of the hustle and the bustle. They're tired of the dysfunction in their lives and in society and in business structures and other types of structures, government structures, a lot of things. People are sick of that. They're tired of it. And they're looking for something more. So people are talking about heart a lot more now, and they're taking it out of a sentimental or weak characterization of heart. Corporate leaders are talking it from the stage now. Many people are acknowledging heart as something that's core and essential to who we are as human beings and how we're going to solve the problems that we are confronted with in these times that we live in. To me, intuition plays a key role in that. If you think about it this way, disruption has become the standard and the norm. Everything's being disrupted. Business models are being disrupted. Governments are being disrupted. Society itself is going through a disruption. But there's also a positive type of disruption taking place as well, and that would be the disruption of how we think and how we figure things out. Because we can't even keep up anymore intellectually. I just give up on that. Don't even worry about it.
I know, right?
People can't. You really can't. So let that go and recognize things are moving faster than we can actually keep up with. But what's going on is that a new intelligence is emerging in ourselves at the same time. It's intuitive. It's disrupting some of that logical linear process that we only use to determine what we need to do. That's important, but we need something more. Intuition is more of a direct knowingness. It manifests more as a feeling than it does as a thought. You said it earlier. You get this feeling about something, whether you should take this job or not. It's a sensing that we have, and we can learn to develop that and make it very practical. In the book Heart Intelligence that I had the honor of co-authoring with HeartMath's founder, Doc Childry, and two of the other HeartMath leaders, we talk a lot about intuition in that book. And in our training programs today, we have modules about intuition. But again, we're trying to take intuition down to something practical. It doesn't need to be looked at as only mystical or only intuitive if we've come up with some great discovery. Intuition is choosing which words to use in a sensitive conversation.
Right. And knowing
intuition
that
is really deciding, is that person the right one to hire?
Yeah, so I can imagine this disconnection that we're all seeing. We're making decisions based upon our brain and our logical thinking and things like that, and we're disconnected from our heart and our intuition. And I can imagine how if people applied these principles and reconnected with their intuition and their heart and their true authentic self, and they did things that only made them feel good, and they said yes to certain things and no to things that were going to disconnect them from their self. Imagine if everyone lived if we lived in a world like that.
Well, I do imagine that, and that's part of what my life's about is one person, part of an amazing organization, doing what I can to create a more heart-connected, heart-based world. And that's what I do. That's my life. That's what I've dedicated my life to, because I think that we can do that. And as we do, we'll find that there will be more cooperation between people. There can certainly be new solutions to some of the challenges where there seems to be no solutions right now. I believe those solutions actually do exist. I believe we can live in a world that will be less polarized. Right now it doesn't look that way. Right now everything's turned upside down. But I see something different happening. I do see amazing things happening with people, between people. I see amazing new discoveries beginning to show up. I see levels of cooperation like I've never seen before. I believe that there's really hundreds and hundreds of millions of people on this planet that are already operating differently. They've already adopted new values and new beliefs, and they're just grounding those now, manifesting those, making them part of who they really are. So I do see a new world emerging right in the midst of this chaotic, terrible time that is depicted so often through the media. Don't ignore that. I have great compassion for what is going on, and that stuff's real. I'm not denying that it is, that it is not real. At the same time, I see a hopeful, open-ended perspective about where we're going as a global society, and it has a lot to do with heart. And manifesting those qualities in our lives and making connection with that intuitive intelligence that's associated with heart. I think that's got a lot to do with the future of our world. And
that book, your book, Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart, we'll give a link at the end of the show where you can download that, or at least a part of it. I think it's the whole thing, but we'll give a link at the end of the show.
You can download chapter 1.
Oh, great. Okay.
It's a good chapter. I happen to author that chapter, but it gives a good overview of HeartMath and where we see the world and where we see ourselves in the world. So I think it would be something that people listening to your show would enjoy. And our marketing team here this morning sent a link to me, said, "Why don't you offer this, on the show you're doing today?" And so I have it.
That's awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah, we'll share that at the end. That's so cool. I'm so glad you did that. Now, I was going to say, I want to get into some more of the practical ideas and applications for our listeners. They're thinking maybe I could use this for meditation or different practical applications for this. But I do want to say, though, that if you really think about it, it's so fascinating to think that a lot of the thoughts that we have about other people, about other cultures, about other races, about circumstances and situations, events that we see in the media, and all these types of things that we are exposed to, a lot of our thoughts a lot of times aren't original, where we are told to think about a certain group or population or a certain circumstance a certain way by an institution, or our government's telling us to believe certain things about groups of people or whatever it is. And really that is the essence of what we're talking about here, because that's so in disconnect with how do I feel about someone of a certain race. If my government is telling me, I'm not saying our government's saying this, but if our government did tell us to think about a certain race a certain way, that disconnects me immediately from my own heart. And when I see someone of a different race, they're awesome people and I love them. And the only reason I would think a certain way about them disparagingly is if someone told me, and we're being sort of bombarded from all sides for people telling us how to think and how to feel. And that disconnects us from ourselves, doesn't it?
It does, and it's interesting too. There's there's sort of these mass ways in which we think, and it's like a whole lot of people thinking the same thing. It creates a certain view of this is the way that it is. This is reality. But what's really interesting about that is how quickly that can shift and change. A viewpoint can change. It becomes, at an energetic level, very viral, very quick, and before long, people have started thinking about something differently.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at some things. Long time ago, all Japanese cars were terrible.
Right.
A long time ago, I'll never have one of those damn answering machines in my house.
Right. Yeah.
That kind of thing. Climate change, that's a bunch of nothing, that's crazy.
Right.
But then you see then all of a sudden something happens and this gigantic shift occurs, and then as people start seeing it completely differently, in many cases 180 degrees different than they saw it before, and it's happening to billions of people.
Right.
Close to the same time. So what is going on there? Something is being communicated in a different kind of way. It isn't just word of mouth. It isn't just because some things were published in the media. Mm-hmm. Something else takes place. So even though we have these old programs, I'll call them, that we are operating from as a global society, that can change pretty quickly. But I do think that there's biases and there's separations and all that are so based upon just old programs that we've been handed, that we bought into and don't even know we bought into it.
And we would never think that way. It's not even
original thinking.
Right, yeah. We'd never think that way unless we're told it, right?
That's right. So we all base our life experience on, our reality on our life experience. And so we're all exposed to different things. That's good. That makes us who we are. That makes us unique. But at a certain point, we need to become more of who we truly really are. And that's what you're talking about. How do we make empowered thoughts and choices that draw from the influences and the information that we have, but that we go a level deeper and decide what really makes sense to us and what's right for us.
I think
that's where heart comes in again, as a methodology or as a mechanism in many ways to give us the ability to make those individual choices in a more informed and dynamic and unique way.
I like that because it reconnects you. You can tell what your heart rate variability is from the EMWave. I remember when I was using it, you can tell. And I think that a part of all that, it's got to stem from sort of disconnecting. I mean, long ago, I stopped watching the news and television and all of that. And that's been one of the best things I've ever done, is just disconnecting myself, unplugging myself from whatever it is that they're trying to feed us. And also the same thing goes with negative people and negative circumstances. If you know that you're going to be living in a place that's going to draw out the worst parts of yourself, or you're going to be involved in a job that does that, I think it's, the first step is to understand and connect really with who you really are, because I don't think a lot of people can really get past all of that stuff to really reconnect. And so that's what's so cool about the EMWave and the work that you guys are doing. It helps you reconnect. Because I was going to say, part of it all for me is getting rid of the influences in my life, whether they're circumstantial or people, that prevent me from looking within.
That's right. Well, HeartMath is more than science and more than technology. We have a set of tools, really, that we developed based upon science and technology, but it's a set of tools that people can use and apply in their lives that can step by step begin to unfold more of the qualities of the heart within themselves and connect them to that core part of themselves. Mm-hmm. That's the most important part of HeartMath. Is the tools and techniques, and they're presented in training programs, in books, and I speak about those type of things, literally all around the world. And that's what gives people something they can do, mm-hmm. something they can do to empower themselves. That's what's most important. HeartMath has never been about like trying to create some dependency. It's about giving people things that they can do to really, again, empower themselves to become more of who they truly really are. That's what we want. That's our vision for people, to give them the ability to do that. Mm-hmm. And so there are ways that people can do it. It's not as hard as you think. But, yeah, there's challenges in individuals' lives today. Many people face challenges. And then there's the global and world challenges that we all see. Mm-hmm. Unplugging can be helpful. I think balancing what we digest from the media is a good discipline in a way. And sometimes I'll go on what's called a news fast.
I love it.
Which means, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I'm not going to watch the news. I'm not going to be on my iPhone looking at the CNN site.
Right.
And I'll go get away from it some. But I like to stay in touch a little because I think it keeps me informed about the pulse of what's happening. So I'm not trying to go off into the forest somewhere and never look at news again. Mm-hmm. But there's a balance in that because, boy, the news can program you like crazy. Mm-hmm. I was watching this show 2 nights ago, Justin. You probably are familiar with all this. It was a documentary about the food industry.
Oh, okay.
And it was amazing. It was hard not to be judgmental. I tried to approach it from a more neutral perspective and not see the people involved in the industry as bad or, bad people or anything. But, boy, what a program we're being run,
Right.
And it's so smart. It's so intelligent. In many ways so insidious. But they were showing things that I had never even thought of, how advertising, just the way that they show advertising is created a reality that we're supposed to eat all the time.
Uh-huh.
That we snack, that we have the little candy bars that we're running around, that we're, having everybody's eating, and that eating is a reward that we get, and eating is something that, is just something that we should do, all the time.
Right.
And they had things like, how they design grocery stores and how the milk, something like that, the milk is always going to be in the very far back of the grocery store. Mm-hmm. Because people can go back there to buy milk. It's a staple. So they put the staple in the back of the store, so you have to go through the whole store to get to the milk, and therefore you may buy something as you're in there, And this whole thing is designed to make us eat, because their job would be to produce things that you eat and then sell those things. So if their job is to sell those things and they need to sell more of them, they need to make people eat more. So everything from their advertising to their branding to the way that their retail outlets are structured is designed to make us eat. And I step back and look at this and realize, look at all these programs that have been run on not only me but society.
Right.
No wonder we have obesity.
I know. It makes so much sense.
It's like, how can people help it in a certain way? We're being programmed to eat.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, too, because all of this stuff goes so many layers deep, doesn't it? Where you're watching the documentary, and you just said it at the beginning when you started sharing about your thoughts about the documentary, is that, the documentary itself wants to change how we think about something. And so you look at them and even all the people that we talk to on this show, although all of them have great things to say, and we all have great things to say, in essence, it's the individual person listening and taking it for what it is, because even a documentary is programming in a sense, because they're trying to get you to think a certain way, maybe a different perspective, but it's all programming no matter who it comes from, or unless it's yourself,
That's a very great perspective on it all, because, they have a bias, whoever made the documentary. He's trying to expose something, right? So they have their own deal going on.
That's a good thing, It's a good thing.
So they're presenting their side of the story and all of that. But I think, you're right. And we're going to be exposed to so much. Information is ubiquitous now, beyond anything we could have ever imagined, and more is coming. There are so many new technologies getting ready to become realities in our world. It's going to be a very new and different world very quickly. And so we're going to constantly be exposed to lots of new information and new ways of doing things. And in order to maintain a certain balance within the context of all of that, we, I think, have to return to more of our own hearts. I think that is key in this whole deal, because it's going to be faster and faster and faster. It's not going to slow down, my friends. I'm sorry, but it isn't. But we can slow down on the inside some.
I want to ask you about some of the practical applications, but first, really quickly, what are your thoughts about people that get heart transplants and them having memories of, some people describe, intuitions or knowledge about things that they never had before? And if someone does get a heart transplant, does that somehow affect their ability to connect with their heart, do you think?
Well, let me answer the first question. Yeah, I'm familiar with the stories. I've actually talked to people who've had that experience where they got a heart transplant and they begin to take on emotions and personality characteristics associated with the donor. I think what's going on there, what that relates to, is actually that nervous system in the heart that we started our conversation with. The heart learns and remembers. It carries a memory imprinted in those cells in the heart and then communicate with the brain. Now, what's interesting about the heart transplant personality changes that you spoke to is that they don't last long.
Oh, they don't?
They go away very quickly. And what seems to be happening is that the heart is now imprinting memories from the experience of the person who has it that override or write over the old memories.
Now so I got to unpack that. That's really interesting. So if someone has, let's say a 40-year-old man has a memory of something that happened to him when he's 20, but at 39, he gets a new heart for some reason. And so when the new heart gets put into the 39-year-old man who had some traumatic event happen to him when he was 20, then that new memory could be installed into the heart as a memory?
Yeah, it could.
Wow.
I don't know for sure, but it could.
I mean, theoretically,
what's probably more possible is that, things that happen to the man, experiences that he has as he's living with the new heart, begin to imprint more readily into the heart.
Isn't that fascinating? So have you talked to people that have had that happen?
Oh, yeah. I sure have. I've had them approach me at book signings and places like that and want to chat. And I've certainly read the stories. One of the researchers has done a lot of that research, Dr. J.A. Drew Armour from Canada, was on our scientific advisory boards for a while. There was an author, I can't remember his name now, that wrote a book called The Heart's Code, that was in communication with me. That was the most famous book about that type of experience. Paul Pearsall was his name.
Oh,
He's
right.
deceased now.
He was a great guy.
He wrote a book called The Heart's Code. He was in communication with me. And he wrote a story about a young woman who received the heart of another young girl who had been murdered, and she started having visions of the actual murderer and the murderer, and they used that information to track the guy down and convict him.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
so amazing stories like that.
Paul Pearsall is a great individual. I've listened to many of his interviews, and I first got exposed to his work on Coast to Coast about 20 years ago or so. But yeah, he's written a lot of books about this, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He's deceased now, but he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
But let me say this. Now you ask the question, well, if the person has a heart transplant, can they still feel, emotions of the heart? Absolutely they can. I've talked to people, another practical way of looking at that, I've talked to people that had heart transplants, and of course when a heart transplant happens, there's no neurological connection between the brain and the heart. They can't connect the nerves that run from the brain down to the heart. And so there's no of that standard neurological communication. But that does not prevent this person who had the heart transplant, let's say he's a grandfather, from feeling deep love for his grandchildren. It's still there. Now, how would information that creates personality change get from heart to brain if there's no neurological communication? That, I believe, is where the energetic field of the heart comes into play. That energetic field of the heart is being imprinted by our emotions. Now you move from biology to physics. Now the field of the heart is communicating with a little field produced by the brain, and information is being exchanged that way. So memories can be transmitted, from heart back to brain, through the energetic fields.
I wonder if in the new person that gets the heart transplant, I wonder if eventually the heart does sort of regrow that nervous system connection to the brain. I've
heard that it's called reinnervate, that they do reinnervate some over time. That's recent information to me. I don't have total verification of that, but someone who's had a heart transplant was explaining to me that that's what he had been told, and his doctor said his nerves were reinnervating. So
it's so fascinating.
So that begins to happen.
I find it so interesting that so many people in today's world and culture, and especially, I go to the gym a lot, so I'm lifting weights, and people are talking about the body and this beautiful machine that we have, and all of this thing, and the body is constantly referred to as a machine. And to me, it's like some sort of energetic light body that's more of a host for other life forms like bacteria, and we're much more bacteria than we are our own cells. And it's so fascinating. I think we're the farthest thing from a machine. I mean, maybe with our physical parts, but man, there's so much more going on than we ever have understood.
Yeah, there's a lot, and it can be, again, stimulating and interesting, but maybe I've just been doing this a long time now, and it brings me back to very simple things, actually. I mean, I believe the purpose of life is to love. If I can do that every day, it'll impact my health, it'll impact my intuition, it'll impact everything. I try to keep it simple now. It's just too much to figure out.
I know, right?
I'm intrigued by it all. It is entertaining, but I try to keep the noise shut down a little bit and focus on, being a better person and do what I can to share with others in a meaningful way and help make their lives a bit better. And if I keep it simple like that, then things usually work out. Yesterday was my birthday. And I had a feeling of thankfulness for just the gift of life. And it was a feeling that was beyond any of the challenges or business issues or any of the stuff, that goes on in my life. It was way beyond that. And I just wanted to keep that feeling, that thankfulness for being alive, for being involved in this amazing adventure. And if I can go back to those places, I think that's what opens the door for the rest of things to unfold. Because I really believe that that's the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to learn, to grow, and you do that best by loving.
Mm-hmm. It's so great. I was having the same sort of experience a couple of days ago. A friend of mine died recently of colon cancer, and I have another friend right now with jaw cancer, and it's incredible. I mean, I'm 40 years old, and these people are dying in their mid-30s, early 30s, and I'm just so thankful that we're here. We get to be here and to do what we're doing and to help people. I mean, what a gift.
Well, if people listening to our program today have gotten something from this, we've had, I think, an interesting conversation. It's moved around from one thing to another.
A little bit.
It's been fun from that perspective. But
yeah,
if you want to know more about what we've been talking about, you go to heartmath.com or .org website. And that's where you can see things like the Inner Balance Trainer and the EMWave, and learn more about how you can become part of a heart movement that's taking place in the world today. And there's going to be more and more to come on that. We're going to create new accreditation programs allowing people to become ad heart facilitators. There's going to be lots of cool things that are happening soon. And if you get on our mailing list, you can determine what type of information you want. Then you'll be able to keep up with this, keep up with what's unfolding, and hopefully there are things that we're doing that can benefit you, that can make your life a little easier and a little better through connecting you more with something that you already have inside, which is your heart.
I want to ask you, just closing up here in the next few minutes, about some of the benefits. So I've been, like I said, my friend Richard, Dr. Massey at Texas, first told us about the EMWaves, and I was very intrigued. And when he put one on me and I got to use it, it was just so telling on so many levels. But I want to ask you just some practical things from a health perspective. I know there's people out there that do muscle testing and kinesiology, and there's, people are trying to figure out, is this food going to be good for me? Or maybe they want to figure out, how do I best talk to my boss about a raise? Or what are some practical things, maybe from a health perspective, where this EMWave could benefit some people?
Well, when you're using an EMWave or the iOS version Inner Balance Trainer, what's happening is you're creating new baselines of coherence in yourself, which means you're going to be naturally more coherent. What's also happening is you're imprinting the brain with positive emotions, in a sense. And so what goes on is you're repatterning the neural circuitry in your brain. And so as you do that and you experience more of the type of emotions that would be considered positive, that's healthy. That improves health. It's been shown. Psychoneuroimmunology fits right into that. The more of these type of emotions that run through our thoughts and through our feelings and all that, the healthier we're going to be. Appreciation certainly is more healthy than hardcore frustration and judgment. Caring is essential if we want to have a healthy life. Uncaring people that have shut themselves down, usually don't have good health. In many cases, they don't. Mm-hmm. So learning to repattern that neural circuitry, learning to be able to evoke those emotions more naturally is a benefit that you get from using the technology. Now, also, I mentioned a term earlier, which many of listeners to a show like yours, Justin, probably know, which is called the autonomic nervous system. Mm-hmm. Autonomic nervous system influences about 80 to 90% of every bodily function that we have. It's very central within us. There's two branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic. And this nervous system is really, really important for health. When it begins to go out, a lot of other things begin to fall apart. And so using the technology helps to create more of a synchronization between those two branches in the autonomic nervous system. It's good for that nervous system. It revitalizes that nervous system. Many people today, because of the stress they live under, suffer from something called parasympathetic fatigue. And that's not good. That means the parasympathetic part of that nervous system is wearing out. Now, people that have used our technology, we don't make health claims. And that's FDA regulations, which I'm glad we have in our country. Mm-hmm. But we have seen many, many people that have improved things like parasympathetic fatigue using the technology. We've seen improvements in heart arrhythmia. We've seen people who have lowered their blood pressure. We have seen lots of mental health improvements, people that have overcome things like anxiety and depression. This is happening not just because of our technology, but because of the amazing health professionals that are out in the world using what we've created to help and assist people. And so we've seen a lot of health benefits that have come from the utilization of the technology along with HeartMath techniques. You can use any technique you want to with the technology. I think what's best is if you use some sort of heart-focused or heart-centric technique with it. We certainly have a suite of techniques available for people. But those are some of the health benefits that we've seen. Now,
just to be clear, or correct me if I'm wrong, this is more of a it's not necessarily input as much as it is sort of biofeedback. So you get so you get an idea of how your body is processing and your autonomic system's working. Is that correct?
That's right. It's not like traditional biofeedback, which measures brain waves. This is actually measuring heart rhythms, which is a different discipline than traditional biofeedback. I will say this, when we came out with this technology as a consumer product in the year 2000, it was a disruptive technology within that industry. Biofeedback people didn't know what to make of it, and they didn't like it. Today, about every biofeedback practitioner that there is has some sort of heart rate variability measurement incorporated into what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I had one at my chiropractor.
Yep. So we revolutionize an understanding even in a generic sense of what biofeedback is.
And I think that Dr. Massey was telling me about, I think the one on the iPhone has a reporting system so you can see how long during the day you've been in coherence versus not coherence.
Yeah, you can connect any of them, the EMWaves or the inner balance trainer to what's called a heart cloud. You just sync it. Oh, okay. Then you get your own dashboard. You can see all of your results, your histories. You can see how many points you've gotten. You can see your coherence levels over time. Lots of cool things. And what's interesting too is that the longer you use it and the more coherent you are while you use it, the more coherence points you accumulate. So you can see your point totals. And so I'll give you an interesting example. See if you can follow the math on this. If someone sits down, they're pretty good at it, and they spend, let's say, 10 or 15 minutes of time with it, they're probably going to accumulate between 300 and 500 coherence points. Mm-hmm. Well, on the heart cloud, you can see how many coherence points have been accumulated in a 24-hour period by the people who have got it synced up. Usually it's over 1 million.
Oh, wow.
Points. That's what it was this morning when I looked. So you've got that many people using the technology, becoming more coherent within themselves. You can see it reflected in the points. So they're improving themselves, but they're also putting more heart into the world. they're doing something that is impacting every single one of us in a positive way. So I see it both as a personal benefit that can improve health and performance, but I also see it as a service to help, again, create a new and different world that operates with different principles, ones that I think many, many people today really, really want to see happen and want in their own lives.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because I've got this sort of theory or idea that it's not just how we treat other people, although treating other people is amazing and it causes them to feel good, and then it causes them to treat other people, and it becomes this cascading thing. But my wife and I were just talking about the other day about when people are very angry or very upset. You know, sometimes when we walk our dogs here, we walk by a house and the husband and wife are fighting and they're just screaming and yelling at each other. And I often think that, you know, where is all that energy going that they're using to scream at each other? It's somehow being emitted out into this ether, or what Rupert Sheldrake would call the morphogenic field. And that anger is being sort of just thrown up all over this field, and it's got to go somewhere.
That's right. Well, exactly right. And there's 7 billion of us putting something out. Every thought and feeling is imprinting the field.
Right.
And so we're all sort of drawing from that field, and it's influencing us in some way. But we can certainly do our part to recognize, what are we feeding the field?
Uh-huh.
And it's a good question to ask. I think we should get T-shirts that say that, you know, what are we feeding the field?
Right. I love that. Yeah, you know,
because we can offset a lot of that argument type energy that goes on with just putting out more love and care in a casual way.
Uh-huh. I love that. Yeah, I read a book about this called The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav a while back.
He's a friend of mine. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's an amazing guy, and that book just really changed my life. I tried to read it back in 2000, and I just couldn't get into it, and then I just read it now, and it talks a lot about that karma and how the energy goes out into the field, and it's just all that same kind of stuff, and it makes a lot of sense. I can't prove it. I don't know if it's true, but man, it makes a lot of sense to me, and it really resonates with me.
Well, Gary's a good man. That's a classic book written a long time ago that just a normal book, normal type sales until Oprah found it and then put him on the show for years and took that book to the level where many, many millions of people read it. It's a very simple book.
Uh-huh.
It was written a long time ago, and he's written other books since, but it did a lot of service for people. It opened people up to seeing some things differently and some new understandings for folks that they hadn't considered before.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about, really quickly, your training. You have personal training, coach, mentor. Is this mainly for health professionals, or can people that are listening get involved in your training?
You can get involved in their training. You don't have to be a health professional. We do have a program specifically for health professionals, teaching them about heart rate variability, about the technology, and about treatment protocols. And that's called the HeartMath Interventions Program.
Okay.
And that is for health professionals. Now, if you work with people, if you want to share HeartMath tools, techniques, and concepts with people in one-on-one settings, you can become a HeartMath coach mentor. And that's for people like psychologists and therapists, or professional coaches, or sports coaches, or ministers, or different kind of people that work one-on-one.
Okay.
Coach mentor program is something you can take, and you become certified in that. And all these programs are certification programs. You get certified. You get to use the brand. You become part of a network of other people around the world doing the same thing. The last certification that we have available today is the HeartMath Certified Trainer Program. And that's for people that really want to do workshops. They want to stand in front of the room. They could be a corporate trainer that wants to incorporate HeartMath into his or her training programs. Or people that, that do those type of big presentations in workshop structured formats. And so we have a certification for those people as well. So there's a way you can get involved. The first way to get involved, if you don't want to go into training with us right now, is to simply go to the heartmath.com or .org website, and or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Get connected to us, and so we can have a conversation. We're changing, as I mentioned earlier in the program, we're changing our brand. We're changing a lot of the approaches that we're doing. HeartMath is evolving now. We're going to our next level. A new and exciting unfoldment for us is happening, and I'd like other people to be a part of that. We really want people to engage with us. We want to open a dialogue with the people around the world that are into HeartMath, and let's create a new heart-based world together. So those are ways in which you can connect. And as mentioned earlier, if you want to just read a chapter, the book that we came out with, it's the first HeartMath book we came out with in 10 years. We've been busy doing other stuff.
Wow.
But we came out with this book, and you can download the first chapter of it for free. and there's a link that'll be provided for you on the website for this program, where you can just click on that link and go and get your free book, your free book chapter. Yeah,
so that'll be extremehealthradio.com/453, and what I'll do is I'll put a link to the book where you can download right on that page, extremehealthradio.com/453. Howard, thank you so much for sharing. I know you give a ton of these interviews and talks, and I think you do close to 100 of these a year, don't you?
I do.
Wow. So you're still deeply connected and deeply just so passionate about what you're doing.
Well, thank you, and I feel appreciative that I have this opportunity to be a part of something like HeartMath and to be, involved in the world at this time in its history. And then the extra cherry on top is to have conversations with people like you that somebody else might even listen to. So I don't know how to appreciate it enough, really, to be honest with you.
It's so cool because you give these talks out, and someone in Australia could be listening to us, and I'm in Southern California, you're in Northern California, and someone in Australia could listen to us in 3 years from now and still get benefit. Yeah, it's such a cool world we live in now.
And I'll actually be in Australia the latter part of September, early part of October, 3-city speaking tour. So if anybody's listening now from Australia, come see me.
Oh, wow. Whereabouts?
I'll be in Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney.
Oh, my goodness. Have you been there before?
Yeah, many times. I love speaking in Australia. I have a good following there, and I've always had great experiences. And then I'll be back home for about a week, and then I go do it again in Germany. So it's going to be moving around this fall. We have a big annual event we do at HeartMath in Mexico in the Maya Riviera. Check that out on our websites. That's a special event that we do only once a year. And it is an amazing experience, and I get to be a part of that too. So, again, I can't be thankful enough.
Gosh, you got a great job. You got a great gig.
I do.
Not too bad. So people that are listening, can they go on that Maya adventure?
Yeah. It's done at a beautiful resort down there with a wellness center attached to it. It's in a magical, beautiful location. It's an event we do starting on a Wednesday night. We end on a Sunday. It's a bit more long form. There are three of us that do the delivery, myself, Dr. Roland McCready, who's the Director of Research, and Dr. Deborah Rosman, the CEO of HeartMath LLC. And we do it in a way which it provides not only learning, but a vacation and a spiritual experience.
Oh, my goodness. How fun.
We have unstructured time so people can enjoy where they are and do the things that are there that they can do. We do class in the morning. We get together at night for a time when we just bond, and we can only take 100 people. So it's designed to be small, and we have people from all over the world. I think there were 12 countries represented last year, and there were people from places that I never would believe could even be there. There was a couple from Afghanistan.
Oh, my goodness, really?
So it becomes very cultural, multicultural, and people bond in a really cool way, and they learn new science, and they learn techniques, and it's a great experience. And it's the only thing like that we do.
Wow.
And so it'll be the first week of December. In the Maya Riviera, it's an all-inclusive program. You pay your own airfare, and then there's a fee to be there, and everything else is taken care of once you're there. And it's something that I look forward to, every year. It's our 5th year of doing it. And it's pretty amazing, actually.
That's cool. I was just going to ask you where it's located on your website, but it's on heartmath.org, and I'm not sure if you're going to change your website.
Right on the banner, too, heartmath.com, right at the top. I think we put it there recently.
Okay, cool. Yeah, on the .org version, it was down at the bottom under About Us and Events. But it looks like you got all your events.
Check out the .com and see if it's there.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it is amazing. I think there's some spots left for that. Usually about now is when people start to power up, when we get lots and lots of registrations. So if you're interested in that, take a look at it. And if you want more information, there are numbers you can call. You can talk to people, ask questions. And all of that's available to you.
That is so cool. Well, thank you again, Howard, for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it. I love the work that you're doing. It's so cool. And I think that more and more people that get involved in this is not just improves their own health, but improves the health of their family, their community, their friends, and everything else, too. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and all the best to you and to everyone who's listening.
You're welcome. Tell Gabby thank you for helping to set this up. And stay on the line there really quickly. We're going to close out the live show. I want to thank everyone for joining us. If you want access to that book, just go to extremehealthradio.com/453, and you can download the first chapter of the book that we mentioned during the show, which is Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart. And don't forget to follow them on Facebook. And if you've enjoyed this show, please do us a favor. Howard would appreciate it. We would appreciate it if you would share it with your friends, anybody that you know that's open-minded and wants to get to deeper levels of their own health and healing. Share the show with them. We'd really appreciate that. That would be so amazing. So we thank you all for joining us. We'll be back soon. We're back on our regular schedule now that we have our new production PC. We apologize for this about 2 to 3 week delay there in shows. We had to get the new PC working again and the sound working and all of that. So we appreciate your patience. Again, this was extremehealthradio.com/453. We love you all, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. All right, there you go. Mr. Howard Martin from HeartMath.com. I hope you guys enjoyed that show. What did you think about him and his work? Really, really fascinating. Really good stuff. Because you know what? I find it really fascinating that there's this connection between our heart and our brain, and we live in such a bizarre, weird culture that tells us that everything is science and everything needs to be figured out and everything's logical and everything's ones and zeros and math and science and all this stuff. But there's so much going on in our life and in our health and the direction that our life wants to go and all this stuff that we're so disconnected from ourselves. And I think one of the things that we can all sort of take to heart is to reestablish the connection that we have to our heart and being our true authentic self. And that's something that I'm working on a continuous basis, and just being really genuine and honest and authentic and being who you really are. And that's really, really challenging when you have friends and family members and you have people in your life that are telling you to believe a certain thing, or you have to believe a certain thing, or you have to think about certain people in a certain way. Or maybe it's subtle programming. Maybe they're, talking about people in a derogatory way, or maybe they're talking about groups of people that way, or ideas in a certain way. And the whole thing is a subtle way of programming your mind, like we're talking about during the show, programming your mind to feel a certain way and have a certain feeling about an idea, a concept, a person, a group of people, a philosophy, any of these types of things that people talk about, and they don't realize the subtle programming that's going on. And I think one of the first steps to figuring out who the hell we really are, figuring out who we are, what we're doing on this earth, and why we're here, and what our passion is, and what we're supposed to be doing, is sort of just cutting ties with, like we're talking about during the show, all of those people that or circumstances or influences, or even if it's just people or jobs or anything like that causes us to act in a certain way, or causes us to look to other people for their insight and for their wisdom and for their understanding about what we should do with our own lives. I think part of reconnection is shutting off the influences from other people that are causing us to look to other people for what their thoughts are about what we should do in our own life. It's such a fascinating thing. I used to be the type of person a long time ago that would always ask people a bunch of questions, like if I was going to take a job, if I had 2 jobs that were presented to me, I should say, 2 job offers, and I would explain the situation and what I want, and I would explain about this, that, and the other, and the benefits and pros and cons of both job opportunities, and ask people what they thought. But that's such a bizarre thing to do when in our heart, we know what we want. But we don't know because we're disconnected from it. So it's there somehow living inside of us. Or maybe it's from that, maybe we download all of our thoughts and emotions and feelings from the Akashic records, or the morphogenic field, or the collective consciousness, or God, or whatever term you want to use. Maybe we download these things and somehow, but we have access to them, and we know what we really should be eating, and we know what job we should take. We really do. But it's so buried deep down within us, or somehow in a way it makes it difficult for us to get access to this knowledge and to this knowing. And so what's really cool is developing the ability to crack through all of that and to turn off influences of people, circumstances, events, and situations in our life that are preventing us from looking into ourselves and rekindling the ability. It's sort of like, firing nerve synapses, and recreating neural pathways in the brain when you learn a new skill. In the same way, it's refiring up those roads that take you to the place within yourself where you know the answers to certain questions. If you can't get there because the roads are all shut down because we're constantly taking in the influence of other people and other, thoughts of what we think other people know more than we do, then if those roads are shut down, we can't get to the destination, which is some bizarre place within ourselves or in the collective field or whatever you want to call it, that where the answers reside, and so I don't know. I thought this was a really great interview. I really love Howard and what he's doing over there. And like I said during the show, I was introduced to the HeartMath Institute and the EMWave from our friend Dr. Richard Massey and Meridian Grace out there in Austin, Texas. And when I was hanging out with them, and they had me use that. And like I said during the show, you can put it on, you can clip it on. I don't have one yet. I just was using theirs for the better part of a day when we were hanging out with them. But you can put it on, and you can. It will tell you if you're in resonant coherence. So if you're speaking, or if you're interacting with someone, or if you're writing a letter to your subconscious brain, or if you're writing a letter to someone who's hurt you or wronged you, whether they be alive or dead, it will show you if you're in coherence or out of coherence. And I thought that was really fascinating. Now, again, I don't know all the science. I don't know all of that stuff. But, some things in life, you got to just go with it, and if you live in a world that's figured out, that's 100% scientific, then you're going to be cutting out a lot of the mystery and a lot of the deeper things that are going on in this world and in this life that science cannot explain. And so there's a lot else out there besides science. And I think science is great, and we need to be relying and trusting upon science. But science also, you got to look at the business behind science and the organizations behind science and all of that. So, nothing is without the ability to question it, So we should all question science and all that. So anyway, thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. We're back, and I hope we're going to get the sound working on our next show. So we appreciate you guys hanging on for the last 3 weeks without any shows. We've had so many people write in asking, where are you? What's going on? We haven't heard from you. I'm worried about you. People were even writing in about, all of the doctors that have been sort of strangely and mysteriously showing up dead. Aaron over at HealthNet News has been reporting on all this, and people were writing in I hope you're alive and all this stuff. So we are alive, we are here, and we're loving what we're doing. We just had to have Dell Computers create or build us a custom computer, and that took a long time for them to build because of the specifications for doing the show that we do. So we thank you guys all for listening to our show. We're back, and I just can't thank you enough for being a part of everything we're doing here at Extreme Health Radio. And I want to give you guys a couple heads up. I want to thank all of you who purchase products from our Amazon link. Thank you so much for doing that. It really, really helps. I cannot tell you enough how much that helps us. So I really appreciate you guys. Whenever you go over to Amazon, think about the work that Kate and I do over here at Extreme Health Radio before you make your purchases, and click on our Amazon link on the right-hand side of our website. Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that a lot. It helps our work, and you may not think it helps, but it does. It really, really does. And if all of you do it and continue to do it, it really, really helps us. So thank you for that. I want to thank all of the latest patrons, the people who have been supporting our work via Patreon. Thank you so much. That's a platform where you can donate to us on a per show basis, 25 cents, $1 a show. And we usually do about 12 shows a month. So if you donate a little bit and you get $5 or $10 coming out of your account every month to help support us, you guys rock. Thank you so much. And also thank you to all of you guys who have purchased products from our store. Man, how awesome. I love to support the show by offering awesome, unique products. And the products that we have in our store, I'm very passionate about and very proud to have in there. So thank you guys for visiting our stores anytime you want to make a purchase of health-related items, whether it be Surthrival or Mountain Rose Herbs or Amazon or anything like that. We appreciate it a lot. So thank you guys all. We love you guys all. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of everything we're doing. I want to give a little teaser out. We're working on a couple different projects behind the scenes that I'm not at liberty yet to talk about, but They're going to be launching very soon, and I think you're going to really like both of them. So stay tuned. We'll be letting people know in our newsletter list about that coming up pretty soon. So I'm stoked. I'm super happy, and I'm excited about where that's going. And we'll be letting you guys know about all of that coming up pretty soon, probably in the next couple months. So really great projects that I think you're going to love. So in any event, thank you for listening. We love you, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous